Today we are going to talk about the co-host of the Applebox podcast, Anthony Voltsinis. At a young age of 25 years old, has made this his full-time gig and has built an arsenal of gear that a lot of beginner filmmakers and a lot of emerging filmmakers can only dream of owning. And now creating a business to build a whole new platform and a whole new stage in his career. This is a story you don't want to miss for all those people who are hustlers, to all those people who love to grind and are all part of the hustle culture. This man is the hardest worker that I personally know today. Welcome to the Applebox podcast. I'm your host, Danny Lau, and I'm here alongside with the man of the hour today, Anthony Voltsinis. Let's get into it. We are going to talk about our co-host here, Anthony Voltsinis. We're going to start into a story and talk about how you got into this and just kind of get to know who he is a little bit. So, Anthony, let's start talking about the beginning.
Talk about myself?
Anthony, yeah, talk about yourself. The Anthony Voltsinis, as a kid, you were very studious. You were very educational, I guess, what do you call it? Academic, gifted.
I wouldn't say gifted. I was more of a try-hard, I guess. I wanted to be the best.
I heard opposite. I heard you were really smart. You were really smart. That's what I heard.
I mean, I was academically competent. Like, I was doing well in school. I was A student. Like, I was very much a overachiever.
Yeah. Well, I would say that's very good. Like, now a lot of people are A students, but
yeah, I guess.
But it's crazy. So you went from A student to then going into the arts.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
So it was tricky. It was basically growing up, I wanted to be a dentist, a doctor, an astronaut, kind of the classics. Eventually, I landed on engineering because I was very much a tinkerer as a kid. I was like taking things apart. I was very fascinated by mechanics. And
yeah, you said you were into like creating like little what are those dolly carts or what is it called? Those mechanical.
I wanted to get into like
RC carts,
building RC cars.
Yeah.
So, but then eventually, my parents were like, oh, this guy's getting addicted to this. We're gonna pull back. It was also an expensive hobby as a kid. I was like 7, so. Yeah, so throughout school, that was kind of my trajectory, I would think. Towards the end of elementary school and high school, I was thinking I was going to be an engineer. But I always loved filmmaking. And for a particular reason, there was a cartoon on YTV called Being Ian.
YTV, classic.
Being Ian.
Yeah.
and this kid, Ian, he had 2 brothers like myself. I'm a triplet.
Yeah.
And he was like a filmmaker, so half of the cartoon was like him in his own world making films or projects in school.
Yeah,
and I kind of connected with that. And one day we were at the zoo as a family, and we always had these point and shoot like film cameras,
right?
At the classics that anyone would buy now. Every Instagram person has
point and shoot. Okay,
yeah. And then I saw this like some father with his kid, and he had like a video, like a camcorder.
Yeah.
So I asked my parents, like, I want one of those. Do we have one of those? And then they were like, yeah, we have one at home. So we went home, and in like the crawl space in my dad's closet, they took out the camcorder and gave it to me. And since then, I was making like these little home movies. As a kid, I didn't really think much of it. They were terrible.
Your kid.
But eventually I faded out of that.
Yeah.
I was still like obsessed with kind of filmmaking. I would watch Alfred Hitchcock and Spielberg interviews like on repeat.
Nice.
As a kid, like 12 years old, maybe.
You're fascinated by what they're saying and like their thought process, I guess.
Yeah, I was obsessed with Psycho, to be honest. Alfred Hitchcock film. I didn't even watch the film, but I was obsessed with behind the scenes, which was unique. Because like looking back, I'm like, oh, I was very like I didn't even watch the movie.
Yeah,
but I was like consuming his content for like 3 or 4 years, like interviews and stuff.
Interesting,
which is weird. But then eventually, like I lost track of that, and I was, going to pursue engineering. But then I realized like I wasn't even that good at physics and math. It was like my least performing subjects.
Yeah.
And then I took a video class, and my video teacher, I guess, recognized what I could do and that I was interested in it, and he kind of pushed me to keep doing it. And he eventually pushed me to pursue it as a career in university. He's like, you should do this. And I didn't think much of it, but I'm like, okay, I'm down. So I took his class again in grade 12, and that was kind of what solidified the choice to pursue filmmaking.
And you started filmmaking, like, obviously just like everybody else, as a videographer, doing whatever you can whenever you can.
Yeah.
And now you've gotten to the point where you are 25 years old, you are making six figures, doing this full time, doing everything you pretty much almost every single videographer would wish they could get to at some point.
Yep.
How did you get to that point where you eventually got to where you are, where you are making this your life?
So right after high school, I was enrolled at Ryerson, which is a university now, Toronto Metropolitan University, for film studies. But I was doing night classes because I didn't get into the full-time program. So I was doing night school and freelancing on the side. Eventually, I met someone who's also a photographer. He worked with Lady Gaga, Cardinal Official. He had a small business, video production photography business. Right. He hired me eventually full-time. So I did a free gig for him. It was my first gig with him. It was for free. He was impressed that I showed up early, shot and edited this video, and then did a few more jobs with him. And eventually he was like, I want to bring you on, I guess, full-time. So I did it for 4 years. Yeah. That was my true hustle, was doing that for 4 years, like nonstop work, like no days off. Yeah. It was intense. And then after 4 years of that, I went freelance, and luckily I had a few friends who were supporting me. So they would, give me jobs, a lot of editing. That was kind of my strong suit, I would say, at that time. So after doing that, I just met agencies and connected, and through word of mouth and through people seeing my work, I was getting consistently hired.
How did you learn, though? How did you learn, like, your craft? Was it just YouTube? Did you self-taught or just experience? Like,
in the beginning, it was heavy on YouTube, I would say.
Yeah.
And honestly, yeah, just trial and error, like through actually just being
fascination and like just wanting to learn
and thrown into jobs. Like, you got to do this, like figure it out kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I learned anything, like especially photography, like event photography. Like, here's a flash, go shoot this event. Yeah. Yeah. But I developed a skill set that was heavily hybrid shooter, run and gun,
which is really seeked after, especially at that time.
Yeah. Like it was. What I call myself a cinematographer, by no means. I love cinematography. That's what I wanted to do, in my opinion. But that was like early on when I was still working at that company, and I just got really good at a lot of things. Yeah, and proficient and fast, which was kind of part of my, I guess, unique selling proposition. Is I could do photo, I could do video, I could edit fast, I can
kind of do everything that they need.
Yeah,
essentially.
But as you know, like eventually, you have to specialize in some capacity, or else you're just kind of good at everything or average at everything, but not exceptional at anything. Right. Which is good for like the current landscape of social media content creation and things like that.
It's a career path. It's a choice.
Yeah.
You can have. Yeah.
But so freelancing was kind of it was trial and error learning and trying to consume a lot of content, but honestly, towards the end, not consuming a lot of content, which is what I realized I wasn't.
It's almost like you got too busy for it, right?
100%. Got too busy. I was sufficient and like capable to accomplish the jobs I needed to execute on. But
how has that affected your ability to create, like not having time to consume content?
So the benefit of there's benefits and like pros and cons to anything. The benefit of being busy was I was able to make enough money to like I said, purchase the C500 Mark II. C300 Mark III.
Yeah, you have so much gear.
Yeah, like a small production company, like in my van.
You have a small truck and literally a fucking exactly.
So that's the pro. Company. But being too busy, you can lose track of a few things, such as learning, such as your purpose, your passion, which is kind of what happened to me. I didn't believe in burnout. Everyone's like, you're gonna burn out. You're gonna burn out. I'm like, I didn't believe in it. I'm like, okay, like it's just
you're young, you're ambitious, you're Superman.
I'm like, you guys just burnt out because you're lazy or whatever. But it was such a weird mindset where I didn't realize until hindsight that I'm like, oh, I actually like ended up losing my passion. Like, I'm doing the work. I can do the work, but it became a job. Yeah. And my initial like inspiration to create art, I guess, or just tell stories, got lost in the sauce of nonstop grind. And so that's kind of where I'm at, and rebuilding that at this stage, which is unique.
And how much do you think your burnout was a result of just how extreme you are in working? And do you think it's inevitable that everybody has to go through that in order for you to become successful to the point where you can buy C500s and mini production vans?
I don't know. I think there's, all I know is my experience. I've heard other people who've had different career paths and maybe aren't as burnt out, but were able to quote themselves and sell themselves correctly to get paid what they're worth.
Yeah.
For me, I was more in the I'm going to take every job possible.
Yeah.
And grind through it, which was, I can't regret it fully, but I do think that it leads to burnout inevitably, and I think it does happen to most creators in the industry.
I think no matter what level you're in, at the end of the day,
it happens.
No matter what level happens,
especially when someone's coming to you.
Yeah,
like they're like they want to hire you. Like of course, like for me at least, like it was a lot of validation. I'm like, okay,
right.
like I someone's seeking me, my talent, my skill, what I can offer them. I want to, service them.
Yeah.
But that is a slippery slope when you start getting too caught up in that and losing track of everything. And also you take too much on. At some point there's, things start to slip, which is what I realized was the biggest problem. Mm-hmm. Like I could let things slip myself, like mentally or physically, health wise, whatever. Mm-hmm. I didn't really consider that much of a problem. But once things started slipping on the client end and deadlines started getting missed and I'm overwhelmed, it's not like I'm fucking off playing video games
right.
and
like you're working.
Just literally, I'm working 24/7. I just can't maintain the bandwidth. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be a tricky subject to kind of talk on, because there's the difference between where does hustle become a diminishing return. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to hustle. You have to be that, like, almost hardworking to get to a point where you're at. Like, I had to do it too. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to. But then at what point does it, like, how do you stop yourself from it going too far, and now you're like consumed by like everything, and then pulling back is the hardest part.
Yeah, I honestly believe old habits die hard. Like, it's kind of what I've been realizing. It's my habits of saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to say no, even if I wanted to, or choosing not to say no. It's going to compound and eventually reach a point where you can't keep up and things are going to fuck up. And one of my biggest things was my reputation. People knew that I was trustworthy. I could execute.
That you didn't sleep.
That
you're working for people 24/7.
And it reached a point now where, we're building our company.
Yeah.
That's going to basically shift my entire life, which is the goal. Because what I've been doing, I've realized, as beneficial as it's been, as essential as it's been, I'm not proud of myself anymore.
Right.
Which is probably a bigger issue, but I want to start being proud of what I'm doing, and that's why I stopped posting on social media. It's like a whole chain of events I didn't foresee coming when I was just working.
Yeah. But then you don't have time to sit back and almost even think about it. Like, you don't get to sit back and think about why.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? Because you're literally working 24/7.
I became known as the guy who just is always working. Like, he's a hard worker.
Exactly.
But I want to be known for more than that. I want to be known for my skill set, or like my what I know, my knowledge or expertise or opinions on things. I don't want to be known for he can just slave away.
Mm-hmm.
You need that. Like, everyone needs to hustle. But if that's all I have to offer, I mean, obviously I have a base skill set that people see as valuable. Otherwise I would be hired.
Yeah.
Because anyone can work hard and still suck. But now my goals are different.
I remember when we first met, you were making about, I would say, average salary. I don't know the exact number, but I remember you mentioning something around there. And then you eventually learned to switch that and kind of twist into I'm going to ask for more money. And that's a step that you've made in the last 2 years that has given you the opportunity to at least be able now to afford C500s instead of, say, an R5, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're getting to the next level of stuff. What would you say it triggered that, and how did you manage to kind of convince yourself that I needed to do that?
I think it's a number of things. Like, I didn't, I'll be honest, when I was at a company, I was making a monthly pay, I wasn't even a salary. It was just getting paid monthly.
Right. And
I didn't really set those costs. I knew in the back of my head I was getting screwed in some capacity, but I was young. I was 18, 19.
Impressionable.
Yeah. But that bled into my freelance business, where I was just kind of taking things as they came to me. I have this budget. Okay, sure, I'll do it.
Right.
I wasn't factoring in what my rate should be, what it's worth, what the product is worth, what the service is worth.
Yeah.
What the labor is worth in any capacity. So I would say what changed that was being exposed to different people. So like you, and seeing okay, what the value of this is worth. How can I, get paid accordingly?
Yeah.
And also so that's one factor. Like someone like you, other people we met who talk about rates and budgets and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the other component would be just sheer like unavailability for everyone. It's like, let alone myself, but like if I'm booked every day, at some point, like, okay, the rates have to increase. And you know the future, Chris Doe, watching his consuming his content was probably the first exposure to like, okay, how can I price value?
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good.
But it's like those two things. It's like exposure, because I didn't know, I was in a salary mindset. I didn't know what was worth anything.
Right.
And then also sheer bandwidth capacity. I couldn't do anything else. So the only true thing is to cut back and increase your rates, or increase your rates and see who can align with it. And if you outgrow people, you outgrow people. But that only really happened, like you said, I would even say in like a year and a half ago, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. It was a short period of time that it transitioned to that. But I think it's a necessary big step, because now I think, you're still struggling with like being able to, kind of like construct a schedule that gives even yourself time, or even let alone your loved ones, like, and all that kind of, like you're only, I think now starting to see the value in it. And I think that's a big transition on its own. And I think it's one step at a time, like finding the importance of balance in your life. And why don't you talk a little bit on that? Because now you're starting to do it. I think now you're starting to realize that like, it's not just about work, but like, it's about your family. It's about your loved ones, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like throughout the years of, like, it's almost been 6 years, I would say. I could work to the bone for myself, because where I put myself is my choice ultimately. But what's changed in the past, I would say even 2 months, which is crazy. Is like there's been family things that have been coming up that has completely reshaped my priorities.
Right.
And obviously, like, even relationships and friends, and seeing how that's affecting the people around me finally. Yeah. Even yourself starting this business. It's like my actions on myself are now, radiating into the other aspects of my world that I thought were like siloed.
Your responsibilities are more than yourself now.
Yeah, I'm hurting people. I'm like affecting people, and that's the opposite of what I wanted to do. But I almost did it subconsciously. Like I didn't but now knowing that I have full control over it, and saying no and managing that is still difficult. Mm-hmm. But the pain that I know I'm like causing in people is like what's motivating me to like, okay, take a step back. Is this worth it? Am I taking too much on? Do I have enough time for myself? Because if I don't have time for even myself, how can I make time for everyone? Like people I care about who aren't work related.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because no one gets the industry. Like if you're in it, you understand the hustle and like the hours.
Yeah.
But if you have people in your life who don't really get it,
they're not going to understand that.
No.
And it's hard to explain that to somebody. So now we're starting up Faction, and so let's cap off with now what we're doing here.
Yeah.
We're starting up Faction. What is your personal goal with Faction? What do you want this to do?
So Faction, like the core mission, I would say, is to align ourselves with agencies and brands to produce commercial campaigns. And the goal for me personally is to elevate who I am as a creative, and also as like a producer, like a back end, almost manager and operations officer for the company. I want to build a successful business that runs smoothly, efficiently, but we're creating really cool stuff that we're all proud of. Yeah. Working with you has really showed me the level of production that we can achieve.
Right.
My mindset was very closed off, I would say, or I wasn't even thinking about it. Yeah. So our productions so far, even outside of Faction, has opened the door. Like, okay, we want to create this level of work, and we see it on Instagram, we see it on Vimeo, we see like what the bigger brands and even the bigger cinematographers are creating. I'm like, this is high level. This is what we want to do. Like, how can we get to this point? It's gonna require changes in skill set, new knowledge, growth in every way, business wise. I see myself as a producer, one of the producers at the company, and then client relations. So it's going to require a lot of changes, which I'm excited for. Like, it's actually exciting for me, which is I couldn't say that for a long time.
I feel like you're finally doing something for yourself.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah. It's like it is for myself.
Yeah,
because I want to grow as an artist. I don't post on Instagram for a reason. I don't know why. Like, it's a blind spot, but if I'm really fucking proud of the work, I'm gonna post it. And show it and be proud of it and be proud of myself, which is like the biggest thing is like self-respect.
Yes. And I think you finding like a place in the production now.
Yeah.
Finally. Which is being able to say like, I am the company that created this campaign. I am the producer that created this commercial.
Yeah. Or the photographer who shot this campaign.
Or the photographer who shot, exactly.
Yeah. Like the anyone, I still believe this. Anyone, and especially right now in 2022, which is when we're filming this, anyone can be a photographer.
Right.
If you have enough money, you can buy a camera, you can buy a couple lenses, and you can shoot natural light. And honestly, I don't think it's that difficult.
You get point and shoot and expose properly, and you're in.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's levels. Like the middle ground of photographers is dead. There's either like the entry level, which is kind of where a lot of people sit.
Yeah.
But then there's like the high level commercial photographers who are doing like amazing work and are charging accordingly. That's if I'm going to be aligned with anything creative, being a high level photographer that isn't just able to shoot a nice image, but can like really create something.
Right.
Is kind of the goal. So
be intentional with your craft.
Yeah, there's just levels to it. Like I think I've exhausted the everyday photographer stuff. Like I've done almost everything.
It's almost like if you're no longer excited by your work, you got to level up. That's what it all comes down to.
Yeah. So, and then there's so much room for growth in that. Like it's like I think I've exhausted this 10% of what photography is and videography. There's the other 90%, which is totally unexplored.
And that little 10% is where you're comfortable. And again, it goes to the niche saying of like staying in your comfort zone is the most dangerous thing you can do to your ambition, right? Is staying in that comfort zone. And you're comfortable because you can go out there and you can shoot a $500 e-commerce gig. There's nothing wrong with that, right? If you need to make money, but like doing it to you is not exciting because you've done 5,000 of them in your career.
Yeah, listen, like if you got to make money and there's obviously we all have baseline expenses we got to meet. And if I can service my current clients and agencies, like I love them. So I want to do that, but at a certain level, I also need to focus on myself and my ambitions and the skills I want to learn. And the skills I want to learn are going to require time and also going to change how our rates. It's gonna, like it's not going to be worth $500, $800, $1,000. It's going to be worth multiple thousands, multiple 5 figures.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So last question we always ask everybody. Advice to the young bucks.
The young bucks.
Yeah, advice to young bucks from Anthony.
As a 25-year-old young buck. I would say I'll say what I didn't have, basically, which was I didn't have a goal for myself starting out. I didn't have a clear vision of who I wanted to be in this industry. So the biggest thing that I would say is try to develop a sense of where you want to be, who you want to be, and create a guideline and a game plan to how to get there. And you're going to take on jobs that you might not want to take on, but if it helps you financially to reach that goal, do it. But don't get sidetracked or derailed or pulled in different directions that are maybe going to offset your longer term goal for yourself or your vision for who you want to be. Because that's what happened to me. Like I was very, very impressionable, still am. And I was able to be pulled in different directions. And at some point, I kind of lost my sense of identity. So my biggest thing would be to focus on really and meditate on like who you want to be, what you want to be as a creative, like what skill sets you have to learn, and make sure that financially you can achieve them, and you're also still keeping that goal in mind.
Sick. I think that was great. All right.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap, baby. All right.